Welcome, everyone, to the Daily Kofefi. Today is Wednesday, November 6th. I'm your co-host, Carter Laren, and I'm joined, as always, by the bad man Majama, Keri Smith. Hey, Keri.
Hi, Carter. Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm good. Actually,
Good.
Let me tell you something I didn't tell you before the show.
Uh-oh.
So last night I went for a 3-mile jog with my little doggy. My little dog can do.
Can she keep up?
He can keep up. He can. That's about his limit. Like at 2.5, 3 miles is his limit. And we walked part of it. We didn't jog continuously because he likes to stop and do dog things. But I was listening to we did the whole episode on Kanye's new album. Well, yesterday I listened to it on the way to work. I was walking and just listening to it, and it really hit me. I had like this emotional, just joyful response to one of the songs. And then it was just, it's hard to explain. It wasn't happiness. It was joy. It was like mixed with bittersweet feeling, but also joyful. But anyway, so then last night I listened to it's going to be my new running album. How cool is that? This album, this Christian album is my new running album. Because I used to always do running playlists when I was really disciplined about running. And when I was in SJW, a lot of my running playlists were really angry music. Mm. I found that very motivating. And I used to, at the gym, I would put on Fox News because it made me so mad because I was a leftist who hated it, and the anger would get me through my workouts. And I look back on that now and I'm not motivated by anger anymore. I try to be like, I would try to go running and I put on angry songs and it doesn't work. And so listening to this album last night, I had so much energy and it's all positive. It's all positive songs. And I was just reflecting on it and I just felt like, wow, what a different place I'm in now, where the thing that's motivating me to move my body and to exercise and stuff is not rooted in hatred and anger, but in joy and positivity and love and self-improvement. Huh?
Sounds much healthier.
It is. I think so.
Back when I ran a lot when I was young, and I haven't in years because I have a bad back and running is not what they recommend for bad backs generally. But yeah, I always listened to kind of like positive zone, like in the zone music. I don't think I could ever really listen. I guess if you're doing long distance, it's hard to be angry for that long, right? I never did short stuff. I guess if I was doing short stuff, maybe anger would help. Because like angry music is good if you're lifting. I feel like you need like bursts of energy. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I'm glad you're doing
positive. That song, Selah, the second one on his album, where it's just...
I have not listened to his album, so I don't know.
Gosh, it's so good. It's just this choir of crescendoing hallelujahs. And by the time it gets to the climax of the song, I'm like running, like praising. I can't help myself from...
You're at the Southern Baptist Church by the time the song's over.
Yes. Like, who's that crazy lady running like this? And then I saw this really funny, just very delightful video. I shared it on Facebook, but I'll share it. We could maybe share it in the comments if people want to see it. It's so cute. It's this guy from Australia, some vlogger who I had not seen before, but he did a video blog in the car with his Christian mom getting her reaction to Kanye's album, and it was so cute and funny and just a positive thing to start your day with. So anyway,
well, I would certainly like to see the hip hop community embrace more positive messages. I know Zuby's music is much more positive. Obviously this is a change of heart for Kanye, but I don't think it would be bad for the community to stop rapping about beating up your girlfriends and shooting cops.
Yeah, I mean, and it didn't used to be like that. I mean, originally rap and hip hop were about, like, Public Enemy was about rapping about real problems and injustice and stuff. It wasn't about, a worship of materialism and nihilism. And it was like real.
Agree. thuggery.
Right. It wasn't about thuggery. It was about pushing back against the system. And, you may or may not agree with some of those messages if you're on the right, I guess, but at least it was about messaging, and it wasn't just about like a idolatry and stuff. And so I think this is cool that you can see this trajectory that hip hop maybe is taking. And I do think in that cute little Australian vlogger video where he played the album for his mom, he said he was all excited. This guy is like, this is going to usher in a new age or new era of Christian creativity. And I can't help but think that he's right. I mean, I have one friend who is an amazing artist, and she quit doing art she dropped out of art school because it was all SJW postmodernism stuff. When
Right.
she's actually talented and can do like the Renaissance style. And of course, SJW postmodernist art is like, pull all the lint out of this teddy bear and staple it on the wall and throw fake blood on it. And that's art. You know what I mean?
Did you just make that up? Because that was an awesome made up art project, Keri.
No, I'm pretty sure I saw something like that at a museum. That was look at this. It's amazing. It's like, no, they just tore that stuffed animal apart.
Garbage. I mean, there've been
Garbage.
in some modern art museums, there've been cases where janitors have thrown art exhibits away because they thought that they were actual garbage.
Oh, well, on the flip side, there was one, I can't remember the specifics, but I think it was something like somebody dropped a pair of glasses on the floor and people.
Yes, I was going to say that one too. It was they left their pair of glasses on a pedestal somewhere or like on the windowsill or something, and it became art. So they can get their glasses back.
Yeah. So, so my friend's an actual artist. Like, she's talented. She's not but because at the time back when she was going to art school way back when, this SJW postmodernist was just coming into style, and she was made to feel like she didn't know what she was doing. Like, I guess I'm not an artist because I'm not doing all this crap. And so anyway, she's gotten back into her art of late, and her art is very Christian in tone. Well, she likes Renaissance style, and so she does a lot of Catholic kind of inspired art. And anyway, I was just thinking about her, and I was thinking about other artists who might feel safer making a statement about their spiritual beliefs because someone with so much clout it has done that already and kind of provided cover. Do you know what I mean? So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I also, by the way, prefer a lot of the romantic realism type stuff, or as opposed to the Jackson Pollock, bits of sandwiches and cigarette butts.
Yes.
Crowned in with the paint. But just in case anyone's interested, the Art Renewal Center, they've been around forever. I think it's artrenewalcenter.org or artrenewal.org or something like that. You can look it up. They've been around for a while, and they've got high-res scans of like a lot of really good, it's all Renaissance era type, like romantic realism type art. And it's the thing with art is, I think a lot of times art is often counterculture. And so maybe when culture was much more conservative, you had a lot of drive for art to be like, we're going to break the norms and throw splashes of paint on the, I mean, it doesn't mean it's good. It's just like, right. That's the kind of the drive artistically, and a lot of creative talent and energy is spent, promoting counterculture ideas. But really, Western culture and Christianity and kind of just basic Western values are counterculture now.
Yes. This is my point about Kanye's album. Kanye's album is the counterculture now. That's what's fascinating about the time that we're living in now. And you are right. When the culture was predominantly conservative or Christian, then you could see the counterculture being the something opposite. Right?
That's when you get things like Piss Christ and that kind of stuff, because they're just they're trying to be obnoxious to the mainstream culture.
And be provocative. But see, Piss Christ and that stuff that's not provocative anymore. That's the cultural norm now. Right. You have disgusting, was it BuzzFeed, or I think it was BuzzFeed, had some of their female staff members doing art with period blood. You know what I mean? Like, that's so, what is wrong with you? They're just trying to be provocative for the sake of being provocative. And it's all the stuff we've talked about. It's nihilistic, it's narcissistic, it's obsessed with bodily functions, which for some reason SJWs are really obsessed with their bodily functions. But it's just, there's nothing there. It's hedonism, it's meaningless. And so what is the counterculture to that? Meaning, purpose, tradition, family.
Right. Joy was a word that you
Joy.
used now describing your experience running and listening to Kanye. And joy is a word that has been basically kind of, I feel like it's been besmirched. Like joy seems like a thing that's not cool, or hasn't been for a long time. Like, joy, do you have joy? Joy, people kind of have snide, reactions to joy because culture has been so nihilistic. But now joy is counterculture. It's good. Art should give you inspiration and be joyous and celebrate the good things about the world and humanity. Those are valid functions of art. Obviously not all art. Some art can, have you question why things are wrong or whatever. But that's a great function of art. And it's one of the reasons I think art is important, is because it's inspiring to people. And how inspired can one be with menstrual blood smeared on a canvas? I mean, that's not inspiring. Or even famous people like Jackson Pollock. It's not inspiring to be like, this guy squatted over a canvas and dripped some paint on it while he was eating a sandwich. How is that inspiring? Right? How is, like, compare that to the Sistine Chapel. Right? How is that inspiring?
I'm kidding.
Anyway, I can't stand Jackson Pollock, by the way.
Yeah, well, I get it.
We were going to talk about something else today, which I think we
can do a quick hit. Let's do it.
I just think it's worth talking about because a lot of people are mentioning it, and it really goes hand in hand with
Sorry.
Whoa. Apparently, Tiger has an opinion about this. Tiger doesn't like legacy media either. So this is about legacy media. And so what happened was Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, they released a video of an ABC correspondent or anchor, I guess, Amy Robach, I guess is how you say her name. And she was speaking on an open mic. So she didn't realize this was not aired, right? This was just a conversation she was having. And why don't we play it now and then we'll comment on it.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air.
So by the way, when she's just to pause, the story she's talking about is the Epstein story. Okay. So she's saying, I had the story for 3 years. And we had Virginia Roberts, but we wouldn't put it on the air. No, just a quick aside for those of you who don't know, Virginia Roberts was one of the women who was allegedly in Jeffrey Epstein's stable of sex slaves that he would hand out to people and kind of coerce or force into having sex with people, and who apparently claimed she had sex with Prince Andrew several times at Epstein's behest, and that kind of thing. So
first of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story.
So let's just, I want to pause too here because that's a bad answer. No one knows who Jeffrey Epstein is. 3 years ago, people knew who Jeffrey Epstein was. It's not like the guy was unknown. He was convicted in 2008 of a sexual offense. And she was talking about sex with Prince Andrew. People definitely know who Prince Andrew is. And she talked about Bill Clinton, which I think Amy will mention here in a moment. But so it's not like who cares if you don't know who Epstein is?
It doesn't. But by the way, you're right. People did know who he was, and the accepted narrative, or like most people just accepted that he was nothing was ever going to happen to him because he was too untouchable. And
right.
And so how great would it have been to break this story and show the world nobody's untouchable when they've done this kind of evil? But no, well, nobody knows who he is. Even if they didn't know who he is, You're going to let this continue to happen
Yeah,
by
who
not
cares?
breaking
You don't know who the pimp is.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that guy at the BBC, Jimmy, what was it? Seville, the guy who molested hundreds of children, and they all knew it, and they just let it keep happening for decades.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so let's let her go. Continue.
Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways.
So she was saying the palace, one of the reasons she thought it was because the palace found out there was allegations against Prince Andrew and they threatened the network.
We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything.
Okay, so Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, Prince Andrew, and the reason is no one knows who Epstein is. I'm pretty sure the other people make up for that. And like we pointed out, people did know about it.
By the way, I just looked up how to pronounce the name of the guy I was talking about at the BBC. It was Jimmy Savile. And,
Savile. Yep.
And so one of Epstein's best friends was Prince Andrew. One of Savile's best friends was Prince Charles.
Yep.
Anyway.
I tried for 3 years to get it on to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Would you mind pausing it? Oh, okay.
So, by the way, including other women backing her up.
So, yeah, I was asking you to pause it earlier when she first was kind of gloating, although she did it at the end too. She's like, one thing about this that just bothers me is that the thing she's most upset about, and with her arms all folded like this, is like, this was my story, and nobody knows that I'm the one that had it. And it's like, that's what you're upset about? That's what you're upset about, not the fact that he was able to continue to do this to women because you sat on it for 3 years. You know what Ronan Farrow did? There's a correlation here between Ronan Farrow's got a new book out, and he talks about how NBC, where he was working at the time, killed the Harvey Weinstein story.
Yep. And
in part, they killed the Harvey Weinstein story because Weinstein knew about Matt Lauer and threatened to put out all the dirt on Matt. That's how they all keep each other's dirty little secrets. Right. Friggin' nasty elite. So he was like, if you run the story, I'll reveal all the Matt Lauer stuff. But the other thing was Hillary Clinton's publicist put pressure on him too, because he was trying to get an interview with Clinton for a different story. And her publicist was like, well, we don't like the Harvey Weinstein story. And so she put pressure on them to kill it as well. And so in both of these cases, the place they were working for ended up not running it. ABC in this woman's case, NBC in Farrow's place. What did Farrow do? He took it somewhere else.
Right. She could have done that.
She could have done that.
Right.
That really
wanted her career.
Yeah, that bothers me so much about this woman.
No, anyway. I get that. And you can sense from the interview, she's envious that it's not hers anymore, that she had, like, I had it was mine, like I had it all, we had it all. So yeah, so let's just talk about what happened. So Project Veritas releases this video. The first thing that I noticed people do, Keri, genetic fallacy. Right away, the blue check marks. Wow, James O'Keefe.
They do that every time.
Right.
Sorry.
It's literally an open mic video, unedited. Like what is there to not trust? But so they went after the genetic fallacy thing, which by the way is bullcrap with James O'Keefe. Like none of the Project Veritas videos are deceptively edited, and I think for almost all of them he releases all of the footage. If you want to go through all of the footage, you can.
Yes.
So
here's the thing. I saw one of our viewers posted about this story on her wall, and I saw one of her friends is like, oh, well, do you know it? Do you know about Project Veritas? Like, as if there's something bad to know. It's like, yeah, I know that they're one of the few places that's doing actual investigative journalism and breaking stories that the legacy media won't break because they're in bed with these elite pedophiles.
Right. So ABC and Amy Robach issued statements, and their statements were basically like, well, the story at the time didn't meet our editorial standards for blah, 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 but we never stopped pursuing, and we're going to come out with something later, which is like, yeah, thanks. It's too little too late, but whatever. We're going to come out with something later. We've been investigating, and both their statements kind of sounded like that.
That's why I have
just a reminder. ABC is the network that used footage from a Kentucky gun range and claimed it was Turkey bombarding Kurds in Syria. So their editorial standards are actually quite low. This has nothing to do with editorial standards. These are the same people that ran around and said Nick Sandmann was, mocking Nathan Phillips, who was a Vietnam War veteran, and blocking him from going somewhere. Like, that whole made up thing. It's the legacy media has no standards. This is not about journalism. They don't do journalism. They do propaganda. That's what they do.
For anyone who doesn't know what Carter's talking about, he's referring to the Covington kids thing, Nick Sandmann. The other thing is that I have one word for that, not up to their journalistic standards: Kavanaugh.
Right.
They ran with 30-year-old unsubstantiated rumors with nothing to back them up whatsoever. And
Yep.
then they ran with crazier ones with the nut jobs who started coming out of the woodwork. They would just run with it.
Yep.
And so give me a break. And they think people will buy this, but the sad part is I know people who do buy this.
Well, and they did the same thing with Trump, right? So the Clinton campaign pays for opposition research on this crappy Steele dossier with a bunch of salacious, interesting content in it, unverified completely. They ran with that. CNN's been talking about that for 2 years, basically. So, I think one thing that's, positive about this, Keri, is I think a lot of people, I know not everyone, I know some people still follow the legacy media, but I think a lot of people are realizing that the legacy media, they're not in the business of journalism at all. They are in the business of propaganda. They are trying to push a particular narrative, and if some weak evidence pushes that narrative, like Kavanaugh, they'll use it. And if strong evidence threatens something else, like their existence, or goes against the narrative they want, or whatever it is, they will shy away from it. They'll kill the story. They'll protect a mass pedophile and potentially powerful people involved in the pedophilia ring, like Prince Andrew, like Bill Clinton, like Alan Dershowitz. I know they all claim they're innocent. I'm just saying allegedly. But they'll protect those people if it keeps them in the positions of power they want. So I think there's some good. I don't know how people can take ABC seriously after this. I mean, I don't know how they've been taking ABC seriously generally, but this is just one more nail in the coffin of legacy media, I think.
Of course, it is. And I am hopeful. I think there's a lot of people who are like center left who are waking up to this. Center left, and actually, let me make a caveat, and actual progressives. I'm not talking about regressives. I'm not talking about SJWs, but actual progressives, the kind of people who are anti-war, like Jimmy Dore, progressive comedian. I have nothing but respect for the dude. You may disagree with his political opinions, but he is principled and he is intellectually consistent. And I'm just saying, whoever's watching, if they know who he is, they may be on the right and they might not agree with him, but he's an actual progressive. So that's the type of progressive I'm talking about. They also are waking up to this. And actually a lot of them have been aware of this for a while, because they watched all the legacy media sell the Iraq war. Yep. Any progressive that's a true progressive remembers that and hasn't forgotten that CNN sold the yellow cake lies, and sold and way before that, babies in incubators thing. Like they
Yep.
know that. And so it's the great mass of the left in the middle, which now is predominantly ruled by SJW beliefs, in my opinion. They're the ones who are just like robotic and zombies who follow the narrative and don't even see what they're doing. I'm like, I don't know. Some days I struggle with empathy for people because I just get so tired. I shared this story and I had a leftist on my timeline who's like, well, what about Fox News and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't even get it. Like, I'm so tired of people who allow me to vent my frustration for a second, Carter. I want to be empathetic to people who don't see it yet. But on the other hand, I'm also really just tired of people who still, at this point in history, who still think that left and right is at all important. It's not important, dude. You're watching the wrong movie, as Scott Adams says. You're watching a ridiculous movie. And while they have you dancing like a puppet on a string about partisanship, oh, well, what about Fox News? Oh, the left and the right, the left and the right, you know. This is not about the left and the right. This is about the powerful.
Authoritarians are bulldozing your rights.
Yeah, meanwhile, authoritarians are bulldozing your rights. But this is about the elite and the powerful and the people that they govern. And this guy is so plugged into the mainstream narrative and eating all the garbage they feed him that we couldn't even agree. At some point I was like, we can't even have a conversation because he was like, who are they? Who are they? I'm like, the media, the Blue Cathedral, the actual powerful people in the world. He's like, you know, in the deep state, he's like, oh, the deep state's a boogeyman. I'm like, wow, dude, you know, progressive leftists know the deep state. Progressive leftists are the ones who used to criticize the deep state, like Dennis Kucinich. You ask Jimmy Dore, ask the real progressives about the deep state.
What was the military-industrial complex except for an early concept of the deep state?
Exactly, it's an early concept of the deep state. But the point is, there are powerful people who remain in power despite when administrations like change. You know, there are people who are unelected, who are behind the scenes, who are in all these different agencies, whether it's FBI, CIA, whatever, and even ones we don't know about, that they're to think that doesn't exist. That to me is that's naive and ridiculous. You're living in a la land. And I was like, I said something about, he was like, well, you mentioned Hillary in your post, you know, you made it partisan. I'm like, no, I didn't. That wasn't to make it partisan. It's because she was an important part of the Ronan Farrow story, meaning, you know, her people tried to kill the Weinstein thing, according to Ronan Farrow. And she's a powerful figure that's in the story. This is when I knew it's like, we can't even have a conversation because we're in such different realities. He was like, Hillary Clinton's not a powerful figure. Oh, dude, what world do you live in? I mean, at that point, we can't even agree on basic facts. Like, have fun in your fake world that they've told you you're in. You know, it's like
I don't think he even believes that, Keri. I think he just is saying that for argument's sake. I mean, you can't. How can anyone not believe that she's a powerful figure?
I don't know, but yeah, maybe he's being dishonest. But it seemed like he really. If you really don't believe she's a powerful figure, like, I mean, you're in the Matrix. You know, you're.
I don't even. You're in like another extra Matrix.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're in the Matrix and someone invented a new Matrix in the Matrix and you went.
Oh man. But yeah, so that's just, thanks for letting me vent my frustration. I'll come back to being empathetic maybe tomorrow, but today I was like, oh, I'm so tired of people who think that left and right is important. And I know it's important for me to have empathy, and I know that a lot of people still believe that that's an important distinction, and so it's necessary for me to talk in those terms at times. But left and right is not important anymore. It's like authoritarian versus libertarian, you know, or statist versus non-statist, or powerful elite versus the people. Like, that's.
Yeah, I don't like the last one as much as the other two, but sure.
You don't, but I mean, in terms of this story, that's what.
Oh yeah, this story is definitely about the powerful elite, regardless of ideology.
Exactly, because they will scratch each other's back because they all have dirty secrets on each other. I never realized until this past year how rampant pedophilia is, how rampant child sex abuse is among the rich and powerful. I was so naive. It's
pretty disturbing. And I think actually one of the things that under Trump is there's been a lot of arrests made during Trump's presidency. I don't know. I think the DOJ is doing more work target in that area than they have in the past, but I'm not totally sure. I don't want to, I'm not rah trumping on this. I think that's a fact of what's been happening. I'm not totally sure. Keri, one thing I was thinking was, back in the day, remember when you paid for newspapers? I know you and I are old enough to remember when, like, I had a subscription to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and you paid for them and they came to your house and some high school kid like dropped them off or whatever it was. And you paid for your news. And I think an interesting thing has happened. So when the internet came along, there was this immediate, the mainstream, the legacy news people were like, well, they were facing a problem because people were starting to not pay because they could start getting information for free. And so the legacy media's response was, well, we're like actual journalism. Like those bloggers aren't doing real journalism. You want real journalism. But I think what really happened was, it's true that a lot of the bloggers weren't doing real journalism. But what happened is we've noticed that you haven't been doing real journalism either, legacy media. So now we're in this weird state of like, actually, no one's really doing new journalism or real journalism. And maybe what will happen is new trusted outlets, maybe they'll be specific to particular things, like Project Veritas does exposure of media and tech. Like that's kind of their thing.
That's
right?
their thing. But they do real journalism. They may do it guerrilla style and dirty.
Right. I'm saying that
they do
like
it.
a new one that's emerging, right? So maybe have like Project Veritas's start emerging where maybe we'll get back to a spot where we actually pay for journalism at some point, but it will be just a different set of players who are kind of kept honest by the fact that there's a lot of free stuff out there and you can check how much they're actually doing journalism versus how much they're being propagandists. And if you look at any of the mainstream media, they're all just propagandists. That's all they are right now. And that includes written media and things like, television like ABC and CNN. So I don't know, it could be interesting. We might end up with a time in which people start paying again and you have a subscription to Project Veritas or something. I don't know. That would be kind of interesting. I would like it, frankly.
Yeah, well, there's something about things being more valued when there's a monetary value on it,
Yeah.
So
the ultimate problem, though, which I'm just realizing as I'm saying this, Keri, is the free market doesn't guarantee that any one particular item will exist or any one particular service. If the culture doesn't want real journalism won't emerge and be sustainable as a business. So if we don't want real journalism, you won't get it. You'll continue to get this crap.
And they're counting on the culture not wanting it. They're counting on the culture just wanting to be force-fed the narrative that they've already bought into. Feed me what I want to eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's and they're counting on the rest of us, zoning out and Netflix and binging for the I'm not that
fast food, a big gulp, and biased news. That's what
right.
Just give me what I want.
Right. Can I play something on my end now? Okay, hold on.
So.
Okay, let's see. Okay, can you see this?
Yes, Bill Hicks.
Yeah, okay. This is probably my favorite Bill Hicks joke. One of my favorite comedians ever. And I'll say this was a favorite bit of mine even when I was in SJW, and it's a favorite bit of mine now. And I think that is a testament to truth being constant, even when we're not constant. So this is really short, but here.
They're all the same. I'll show you politics in America. Here it is, right here. I think the puppet on the right shares my beliefs. I think the puppet on the left is more to my liking. Hey, wait a minute. There's one guy holding up both puppets. Shut up. Go back to bed, America. Your government is in control. Here's Love Connection. Watch this and get fat and stupid. By the way, keep drinking beer, you fucking morons.
Yep.
Anyway.
R.I.P. Bill Hicks / Alex Jones's doppelganger.
/ Dennis Leary ripped him off for a lot of stuff. But anyway, that joke though, that to me is what we're talking about in regards to this story and how it's not a left or right thing at all. It's like, there's one guy holding up these two puppets, distracting people like, here, bicker about the left and the right. While with my other hand, I'm diddling kids. Like that's what this is about to me.
Yeah,
So.
no, I agree with you. And I don't know, I guess this is kind of related. I don't know if it's totally related, but whatever. This show is all over the place today. Keri, I think a lot of, I'll call them conservatives, but I just mean people who don't want socialism. So I don't know what the definition of that is, but like people who aren't pushing for like massive expansion of the government. And there's various degrees of those people. I think historically, a lot of them have just been like doing their jobs and going home and being with their families, and they're not really great at activism. The activists are always the like expand the deep state people. They're always the people who are like, more of this, more of that. We want rules for this and laws for that and regulate that and more of that and increase this. And so, you know, I think we've kind of gotten to this point where we're just kind of used to being free and kind of left alone, because there was only so much the activists could do as so long as there were still kind of rights that were in place protecting us. But those are kind of going away. I don't know why this is making me think of it, but I guess it's the elections yesterday. Virginia turned Democrat, right? And I think it's because a lot of people, I think the left is way better at organizing politically and pushing their agenda. And a lot of people that aren't on the left just kind of give them a free pass. And we're going to run out of the freedom that we had, because they're like in Virginia, one of the concerns is they're going to destroy a lot of the Second Amendment rights in Virginia, because now the Democrats are in control of the House and the governorship. And so, or the Congress, or whatever, in the governorship. So, you know, and yeah, maybe they'll pass something that's unconstitutional, but that'll take years to unravel. And in the meantime, everyone will be affected and culturally affected as well. So I don't know. I'd like to see the smaller government people get a little bit more active, but it's like herding cats. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just an observation, and I'm frustrated by it, because I'd like to see the smaller government people get a little bit better at, like, I don't want to just oppose expansion of the government. I want to actively make it smaller.
Yeah. But see, you've mentioned this before. People who are inclined to live and let live and want the government to be smaller and want the government out of our business are also less inclined to organize.
Right. They're less inclined to be in everyone else's business.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the catch-22 there.
I know.
And you know what's funny is it's weird, because when I was on the left, we often talked about how the right is so much better at organizing. It's like herding cats on the left. Like this was like this sort of joke about ourselves, right? Like herding cats.
Yeah.
But
that always fascinated me, by the way, as someone who wasn't on the left, that they would think that about themselves.
Yeah, they do think that about themselves. But I think that, I don't know, I'll have to think about that more, but maybe there's a reason why I was programmed to think that about the left.
Oh, I think there's a reason. I think the reason is, I think the reason is leftists are smug and believe that their arguments are the most rational arguments, and that anyone smart and rational would be on their side. And so what they do but they don't always win. And so they look at the right and they have to have an explanation, like, well, why does the right sometimes win? Why do Republicans sometimes win elections? We're obviously smarter and we know all the right things and we're better, and everything we're proposing is better for everyone because communism is awesome and aren't we great? Well, the only real answer is they must be better at tricking the population. That's what the Republicans are good at. They must be really good at being deceitful, because we're better. Objectively, we are better. So
that's
therefore, the other side's cheating.
But it's such projection.
Yes, I know.
Now that I'm like out of the SJW bubble and I'm more in this no man's land, this nomad area, it's like I can look at the two and I can say, and I have this conversation with people like this guy who tried to make the Epstein thing partisan. It's like they are, and I was like this, they are so narrowly focused on Fox News. Right. They're brainwashed to such a degree, and I was brainwashed to such a degree that when they talk, they really truly believe that this behemoth of the media, which is all left, that they believe that behemoth of the media is objective and that Fox News is super right. And I'm like, wow, once you step out of it and you have a little perspective, you can say, yeah, Fox News is conservative leaning, but all of this
Right.
is leftist establishment. And I just didn't even see, you don't see it when you're in it. It's like, again, like that idea of the fish who doesn't see the water around him because it's all around him. And they will always be like, I'm Fox News, I'm Fox News, I'm Fox, I'm like, yeah, what about it? There's like one little red speck in a sea of an ocean of blue.
Right. And it's not even, look, I mean, in some ways it's far, it's clearly right. In a lot of ways it's centrist. I mean, it's not that excitingly on the right.
No, it's been dragged over to the center because, like everything, the Overton window has shifted towards the radical left. That's why the mainstream left has now become radical SJW. And then you've got the Republicans get dragged over too. They've become socially liberal.
Right. This is my proof that
interesting.
Yeah, and that's my proof that the left is better at politics and organizing and getting their agenda implemented. Because, rewind 60 years ago, which direction, and then just compare where we are now to where we were then. Which direction have we gone? Well, clearly very far left. So you've been doing a good job bringing us to socialism. The left has been doing an effective job moving our country. So
here's what's interesting to me. Let me ask you this. I'm just thinking through this as I'm saying it or asking it. So what's interesting to me is someone like this guy I was mentioning.
Yeah.
He probably believes the narrative that we're living in a super right-wing time now that Trump's president. And it's super right-wing. Yeah. Are you laughing?
Yes. Because Trump's a populist.
Because yes, it's so absurd. But see, I believed it. I believed it when he was elected. I was like, oh my God, he probably believes that narrative that this right-wing authoritarian demagogue is, and that we're living in through this time that's more racist and sexist than ever because of the right wing, and the right wing is so predominant right now. And that's such a lie. And to a person like that, if you're trying to have a conversation with them, is it possible to point out that like the reason that you think you're in that reality that doesn't exist is because you're programmed by all of this media around you, because you're in the ocean, because you're the fish that doesn't see the water. And that's the propaganda that this huge behemoth has to sell you. Am I making sense? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like,
I think I see what you're saying. Well, as you and I have already talked about, a lot of times getting someone to move fundamentally does require some sort of emotional, self-driven motivation. But that aside, what I've seen work in the past, and I'm no expert at persuasion, but what I've seen in the past is when you try and question someone's entire view like that, you're never going to win. There's too much of their ego tied up in, too much of their identity is tied up in all those things. I find it more effective to find one tiny little string and pull it. So don't argue about like nothing else but one tiny little thing that maybe you can, like an issue where maybe they don't have a lot emotionally invested, but they believe the narrative, and see if you can just like stay very limited on their own terms with what they say they want, right? Because as you point out, often there's good intentions. So is what they say they want, pull the string on one little thing and try and limit it to that. And sometimes, I think if you're going to have someone make a major change, it's not going to happen overnight anyway. It'll take a long time. But if you can pull that string a little bit and get them to think, they may go off, they may argue with you, they may block you, but they may go off and think about that. If you've effectively planted a seed of doubt in that one little area, that could potentially grow. And once they disagree with the entire narrative on one issue, then that's a wedge in. Then like they can start questioning other issues and other issues and other issues, and eventually kind of realize, wait a minute, I've been in the matrix this whole time. But I think if you just come up to someone and say, all of your beliefs are a lie. Like, there's no way you're getting to them.
True. Yeah. Anyway.
Which I know is very tempting, because sometimes with people like that, it's like literally everything you say is like blue pilled. Everything is blue. Like everything is matrixed.
It's all the Matrix. It's all that you're a puppet on a string, which sounds really insulting and demeaning.
It is insulting in the meeting, but
yeah, but they are. He is.
Yes, but true. Right.
I try not to say that to people. It doesn't help in one-to-one, but in a third person, talking about this person with you, sure, he is a marionette. Like,
right.
And not just for the left. Don't, like, you know, same with Trump. When we talked about Trump's an excellent troll. Trump tweets. And he does the little puppet strings, and the press dances, and the way they're going to respond to him, and then people like my friend dance. It's like,
right.
It's all this like chain event of like complete distraction.
Well, speaking of that, by the way, we can kind of almost circle back to where we were before. CNN, I don't think has yet. Maybe they have by the time this video gets out. Maybe they will have, but they haven't so far covered the Amy Robach thing at all. They haven't covered that leaked video at all. They haven't talked about it.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. And I saw someone on Twitter, though, hit up Brian Stetler and said, if Trump tweets something that has a typo about this, well, then you cover it?
Trump needs to do another Covfefe tweet or something.
Yeah, but that's literally all that has to happen. If Trump wants him to cover it, he just has to like misspell her name and say something slightly wrong about it, and like CNN will cover it, and that's how it'll work.
That is hilarious because it's so true.
It is.
That is really funny. By the way, speaking of puppets and stuff, if you guys haven't already seen it, you should seek out, I forget the name of it, but there's a video where Jordan Peterson talks about Pinocchio. He references the old Disney movie Pinocchio quite a bit. And if you haven't seen that movie in a long time, I would also recommend watching it. I watched it last year or the year before, and it moved me. I saw it in a different way as an adult. But one of the things he's like, that movie has so many great lessons in it. And one of those lessons is about a puppet learning how to become a real evolved, conscious boy. And I think there's it's like a great allegory for people who are like my friend, who like stop being a marionette, dude.
Right.
Like,
Pinocchio is the old school term for NPC.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and there's a great, I mean, I'm not going to go into all of this stuff Peterson talks about, but one of the things that really stuck out to me, and this is because when I was a kid, Pinocchio was one of the scariest movies I ever saw, and it stuck with me even as an adult. I love zombie movies and zombie books, and I'm one of those people who like being scared for whatever reason. So the fact that it was one of the scariest movies, I related it to zombie movies because of this one scene where the boys are turning into donkeys on Pleasure Island, right? He talks about that scene, Peterson does, and he talks about how it's like being lured, they're lured to Pleasure Island where you can do whatever you want. It's nihilism, it's hedonism, you can play games, they're drinking, they're smoking, there's no responsibility, and it's like that you're being lured there by this utopian, these people who are like, it's all going to be wonderful. Follow this ideology, these Marxists, these identity politics Marxists in our current society, all about worshiping the self, worshiping pleasure, worshiping meaningless pursuits. And then what happens to them? Like, they lose their humanity.
Right.
Like, literally, they become beasts. They become monstrous. And that just gave me chills. And it was like, that's the root of why that scares me. That's also the root probably of why zombie movies scare me so much, or zombie stories, is because it's like a human and someone that you know and something that's familiar suddenly becoming someone that you don't know. That's like that's monstrous. And
right. They've lost their humanity.
They've lost their humanity. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great allegory for ideological infection, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Come here, kids. Candy and booze.
Right.
And,
yep.
Anyway, I think this is a good episode. I like that we touched on
meandering, but it was a fun conversation. Yeah. We should probably end it because it's getting long.
Yeah,
now.
let's end
but
it.
It was meandering and fun all at the same time. So,
Cool.
Don't forget, we have book club. I'm going to announce book club this time just to throw Keri off her balance. We have book club on November 17th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be reading Coddling of the American Mind. You can send an email to speak@unsafespace.com if you want to participate in that. So we've got less than 2 weeks to read the book and jump in.
Well, I'm going to do what Carter usually does and tell you that if you like this video, you should like it and subscribe and share it with friends. And we have a subscribe star instead of a Patreon where you can contribute financially if you want to. And we barely make any dollars at all on YouTube because they censor us like they do everyone. They demonetize almost all of our videos. And this is something we would one day, eventually, when we get enough people viewing and the percentage of people that donate gets bigger, obviously, because the viewers will get bigger, we would like to do this full time. I mean, Carter already does it full time, unpaid, but we would like to do this full time and be able to make other like parody videos, like that video we talked about, like the song. And we would like to be able to do stuff with a little bit higher production value than just sitting in front of our camera and flapping our jaws.
Yeah. The big thing that we want, I mean, the big production thing we want is an editor, because I'm a horrible editor. And it takes a long time for me to do simple little edits, and it's not a good use of my time or Keri's. That she does a lot of editing, but like an editor and frankly, just some things to unburden us so that Keri can pay her bills and eat, and we can start making better content. That's a long way off, but that's where we're going, and that's our goal. So have that in mind if you are supporting. And by the way, thank you for all the people on Subscribestar. I really, really appreciate it. So couldn't do it without you.
Take care. Bye.